Hello, everyone. Trust you well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're watching us from or listening. Um, I have an amazing lady with me, Bron Williams from Melbourne, Australia. Yes, you heard me right, from Australia. She's showing up on Leadership Talk with Adegoke, and we're looking at leadership and burnout. Leadership and burnout. How are you today, my friend?
I am doing well. It's a typical spring day in Melbourne. Yesterday it was beautiful and warm. Today it's
Yeah.
showery and blustery, so hence the warmer jacket.
Wow, awesome, awesome. Now, can you just tell us who is Bron?
Well, Bron is the bias specialist. I have I have this magic bullet, you see, the silver bullet that helps us to improve our decision making. And as we come to talk about burnout, I'm sure a lot of you know that it's in our decision making and the consequences of our decisions that we can find ourselves really being burnt out. And so I'm going to tell you about how bias plays into that and how about understanding bias is the magic bullet that you need in your leadership.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much for speaking to that, Bron. Uh, I'm so interested in this topic, because I know burnout is something that I've been through before, and it's not a pretty place to be, even as a leader. Now, can you tell us about your leadership journey? How did you get into leadership, Bron?
Now that's a great journey. There's a sense in which I've always been a leader or seen myself as a leader. I trained as a teacher, and so I was in the education space for probably 3 decades. And of course, as an educator, and particularly in the primary school situation
Okay,
or elementary school, you lead a class full of children.
okay.
And so you have to be a leader. And not only are you leading them, but you are modeling for them
Mm,
what it means to be a leader, because education is so much more than, 2 plus 2 and how to
yeah.
spell dog. It's about how do you handle yourself in, in a conflict situation. It's how do you deal with bullying, all of those interactions, societal interactions. And so that's where I started. I've also been an ordained minister with the Salvation Army. So
Wow.
I
Well
have
done.
led in that space. And now I'm a leader in my own business as the bias specialist.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, could you just tell us what's your view, definition of leadership?
I think that's a great question because it really can be quite broad, can't it?
I know. I
I
know.
believe leadership is firstly standing up for what you believe to be right and
That's
true.
good.
And in
Mm,
that sense, all of us can be leaders.
yeah.
Um, and even children can be leaders when we stand for the things that we believe to be right and
Yeah.
true. So, an oft used word of integrity. If we have integrity as people,
Yeah.
then we are leaders. So, I
Yeah.
think that at its most basic, that's what a leader is.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. So now, okay, we've looked at leadership, looked at your journey into leadership. Now, can you tell us about burnout?
Yes, been there, and unfortunately, most leaders do. And for me, it was actually coupled with like a health issue which was undiagnosed. So we had a health issue plus burnout, and so the one contributed to the other. However, I
Mm,
think even without the health issue, I would have got to burnout because I was trying to do too many things.
at the
I
same
had
time.
set myself unreasonable goals
Mm,
and I didn't share tasks well. It was, I felt I was responsible for getting everything done.
mm.
And I unfortunately I didn't trust other people to do things as well as I felt I could do them.
Wow.
And I'm sure a lot of this is resonating
Yeah,
with
it
people as they
does. It
listen to
does.
me.
It does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does. If you're just joining us, been speaking with an amazing lady from Melbourne, Australia. Her name is Bron Williams. She's a bias specialist, and we're looking at leadership and burnout. Leadership and burnout. Now, I want you to speak to this area. How can a leader avoid burnout?
Okay. I'm going to look at it through the lens of my business about bias, because human beings, every human being on the planet is biased. They're our preconceptions, the little assumptions that we make. Our biases build up in childhood, and they sit below conscious thought. One writer, Roger J. Davies, says that bias is a bit like a parallel world. It sits in parallel to logical and rational thought processes. So we can, as a leader, we can be making what we believe to be objective decisions that are rational and logical, but over here at an unconscious level, we've got stories and narratives, assumptions that are actually driving the decisions that we make. And so without being aware of these biases, we can be making decisions that are unhelpful, that are not as sound or as solid as they could possibly be. And we end up, therefore, in places that we didn't intend to be. We've made a decision and it's had unintentional consequences. And we look around and go, how did I get here? And actually, that's probably the first place where you can start then when you ask that question, how did I get here? That's the first step in starting to look at our biases and going, oh, there's something else going on here that I need to address.
Yeah. Wow. So what's the next step then?
Okay. Well, I actually do have a 4-step process. And that's really interesting. Yeah, because we look at the triggers, and burnout can be, is definitely a huge trigger in our lives. It's a sign that there is something going on at a much deeper level that we're not aware of. And so like the second step is what I've just said. It's about asking questions, going, how did I get here? Why am I feeling like this? What's at the bottom? And then the third step is to look at the stories of our lives, the narratives. What were you taught in childhood around this particular situation, whether it's around how we deal with people or how we deal with money or anything else in terms of the things that leaders deal with. And we look at those narratives and go, oh, well, actually, in my family, we always did it this way, or, in my country, my culture, my faith, this is what I see as normal. And that's when we can start to go, oh, well, actually, maybe I've got some I'm making some assumptions here. Maybe I've got some biases here. I'm making some presumptions about people and situations that are not accurate. And that's where we can have a look at our biases and go, well, maybe I can actually change these. Because we don't have to, we can't eliminate our biases, but we can work with them.
Wow, amazing. Well done, Bron. Well done. You're just approaching it professionally, and that's really resonating with me, and I'm sure with our listeners as well, all over the world. Now, I just want you to speak to someone, look into the camera and speak to someone who might be going through burnout at this moment, as a leader or maybe even a follower. Yes.
Sure. My very first thing would be to say to you is be kind to yourself. When we get to burnout, and I know that I did this to myself, we judge ourselves so harshly. Why did I get here? Why didn't I? We play those scenarios over in our mind, and we didn't intend to get here. So we need to be kind to ourselves. Allow ourselves the space. That's the second thing, is to allow ourselves some space to heal, because we might be having actual physical health issues. We may well be having anxiety and mental health issues. We can be having some emotional issues. So it's then about finding the space to heal and making the use of the services that are available, whether that's a counselor, whether that's a good friend, people who can support you through this, and then make small changes. All good change happens slowly.
Wow.
So
Wow.
just be prepared to change one little thing at a time as you notice what it is that you need, what you can change. Don't try and set out to change everything in your life.
Because you might be overwhelmed and get deeper into the
and then
burnout.
you'll go back into burnout.
No, this is so good. This is so good. Now, I just know that. For me, what you're sharing, is really so good, and I can adapt. I can adopt some of the strategies because it's ongoing. It's ongoing. I mean, with the
Yes.
COVID, the pandemic has really escalated the issue of mental health. Could you speak to that?
Certainly, it has had a huge impact. Like, we here in Melbourne have just got the privilege of having been the city that's had the longest lockdown in the world.
How long is that?
So that's in Melbourne. I have no idea, 200 and something odd days. I don't know how many days it is.
Wow.
But that's not all in one go. That's, we've had about 7 different lockdowns.
Yeah.
But so that, and for me, I know I can speak to my own journey of, particularly last year, of being a real roller coaster, of some days feeling emotional, where the emotions were very close to the surface and all I wanted to do was cry for no particular reason. I have felt angry. I felt frustrated. I felt, there have been times when I felt hidden, as though I wasn't being seen. So, so lockdown and COVID, like, we're dealing with, to use that phrase, an unprecedented time. I don't know whether that's a word that gets used a lot where you are, but it's overused here in Australia. But we're experiencing something that none of us have experienced before, so we're trying to find our way through it. And it is going on for a long time. So those sorts of things really do contribute to our mental health, or having difficulties with it. And we've also got, people with a lot of different viewpoints who are coming at us from, left and right. Yes. So that makes it harder too.
Yeah. So you really have to connect with yourself, and make sure you have a strategy to get out even much more better. And that's why we're also showing up and adding value globally, because I tell people it's either you're adding value or you're not adding value. If you're not heard from or seen, then that means there's something going on. You must just be doing something. Do you connect with that? Do you agree with that? My submission.
Most definitely. And I think particularly when I see colleagues or friends, and I understand that they get angry and I understand that they get frustrated, but venting that, particularly in a public forum, is not helpful, because you're sending, on an energetic level, you're sending that energy out into the ether to everybody else. And, most of us going, I've got enough negative energy around me. I don't need any more. But it's not helpful for ourselves either. I think we need safe spaces to vent, but we also need to, particularly as leaders, and this is not about being superficial and going, oh yes, everything's bright and fine, when it's not, but it's about balancing vulnerability and saying, I'm struggling with this is hard, but also with the things that as leaders we've learned that we can share and pass on to others that are of value.
Wow. So good. This is Leadership Talk with Adegoke, the 53rd episode. And I've been listening and also sharing the platform with an amazing lady from Melbourne, Australia, Bron Williams. And we're looking at leadership and burnout. Now, I want you to, you've shared so many wonderful, nuggets about how, as a leader, to how you can deal with burnout. You define leadership, you define burnout, and as a bias specialist, you've spoken from that perspective of a professional. I also want you to speak to one thing that you think a leader must do right now relating to burnout.
Wow. Okay. One thing, lead
Yeah.
yourself.
Lead
Lead
yourself. Wow.
yourself.
Self leadership.
Yes.
Self leadership.
Yeah,
You got it right.
absolutely.
You got it right. You got it
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. That's that.
Yeah.
If you lead yourself, then those who see your leadership as valuable will follow you.
Wow. 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 Thank you so much. Thank you. And that's so good. If you leave yourself, which is, get to a level of conscious competence, continue
Yes.
to add value, continue to stretch yourself, move from your comfort zone into your strength zone, take on more responsibilities, more tasks, obviously delegate, build relationships, invest in people, and also receive feedback. It's an ongoing process. And it
Yes.
makes you a better person. You show up
It does.
and you're able to get into a state of fulfillment. Which is so good.
Indeed.
Which is so good. Yeah. So
Yes.
as we begin to wrap up, I just want to find out. Do you have mentors? You have mentors at all?
I do. Yes, I have. I have a business coach and mentor that I use on a very regular basis because we all need those
Yeah.
sorts of people.
Wow, wow, wow. Excellent, excellent. Now, if listeners want to reach you, how can they reach you?
They can go. They can go to my website, which is bronwilliams.com, or they can email me at info@bronwilliams.com.
Excellent, excellent. So, as we wrap up, is there anything you like a guest to, in 30 seconds, you want to share with our guests? Something that, you feel would add value to them?
Yes. Because I will always come at things from through the lens of bias,
Yeah.
don't allow someone to tell you that you're biased and see it as a negative. Know that we're all biased. Bias is part of how we think. And it's as we start to own that this is the way we think about things, we can then actually address some of the less than pleasant, some of the less than positive aspects of our relationships, our leadership decisions, because it's only as we can own things in an honest way that we can ever make progress.
Hmm. Hmm. Awesome. You've heard from the lady. You heard from Brown Williams, from all the way from Melbourne, Australia. I just want to celebrate you and salute you for doing a fine job. I'm so impressed, and I'm sure our listeners that are going to be watching the replay or listening to the podcast will find this very, very suitable, even at a time like this. So this has been Leadership
So,
Talk with Adegoke, with my guest, Bron Williams from Melbourne, Australia, the episode Leadership and Burnout, episode 53. So thank you for listening, and you have a wonderful day. Hello. Bye. That's it. Thank
right,
you, everyone. Yeah.
good.
Wow. Yeah.